Welcome to the Grandstand Golf Podcast. This is the weekend golf update for the 2021 PGA Championship. I am your host, Adam Bapti, and as always, I'm joined by my brothers, Kevin.
How's it going, everyone?
And Craig.
Hey, guys. Nice to be here. Exciting week. Oh.
Very exciting. I think everybody listening is probably coming off, 16 hours of watching golf on the weekend. But still, Craig, give us a quick recap of what we all just witnessed at the 2021 PGA.
Okay, so first time, here to announce him for the first time, 6-time major winner Phil Mickelson took it down. I don't think this is something that anyone saw coming. Just to give you a little context of Phil coming into the week, 16 major starts since the 2016 Open Championship. That was when he went ham along with Henrik Stenson. He ended up runner-up, but the both of them were, lapping the field. So 16 starts since then. Not a single top 10. He does have 4 top 25s, but 3 of those come at Augusta, which, as we all know, Phil's the lefty bomber that Augusta plays to the strengths.
Yeah.
So Phil Mickelson was in the top 100 of the world golf rankings. Do you know when he got there?
Oh, like when he first got
into the top 100? Got there? So he won the international tournament, is what it was called, in 1993. He was in the top 100 until March 21st of this year and fell out of the top 100. So, Phil is someone who has been in our lives as golf fans as long as I can remember. And so, to me, the thing, we're going to get into how this happened and what went down, but the thing that I can't remember the last time I sort of felt something like this after a win. Maybe like when guys get their first wins and first majors, there's always that like feeling of this being a big moment. Or Tiger, obviously, in 2019.
Right.
But I've always been a Phil guy. So for you guys, did this one hit you in the feels, or?
Adam, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, it's going back to me. Craig, when you're saying those stats, that's pretty much about as long as I've been alive. So Phil has been a part of my life as long as my life has pretty much existed. He just brings back all the memories. We'll dive into it a little bit deeper, but yeah, it just like, Tiger at the Tour Championship and Tiger at the Masters. It's just different. It's a little bit different than, a Dustin Johnson winning or one of these guys, Hideki Matsuyama, even though that's really cool in its own right. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. I do think, they showed that picture of baby Brooks when I think Phil had won his first event, and that would have been you, basically. You would have been little baby Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older, but just like you guys, he's always been there. As a professional golfer, Phil Mickelson was always one of them, as long as I can remember. Generally, I haven't been a Phil guy. Obviously, the big Tiger homer of the group, didn't necessarily root for Phil, but over the years, definitely grew to respect him and appreciate him for his talent, the showmanship he brings, everything. I truly think that this should go down as one of the greatest championship performances in golf history. To do it like he has after coming out of nowhere, essentially. Like he is. When was his last top 20? I think it was last year. He's kind of been off the radar for some time now, other than some flashes on the Champions Tour. It's unbelievable. Given his recent play, given his status in the game, given his age, absolutely one of the best championship performances in history.
Yeah,
he's still out there a lot, killing it dancing in the Mizzen and Main commercials.
Well, he's been kind of the butt of the joke for a while. Like he has like those long, shirt sleeves at Augusta. He pulled out a few years ago. He's throwing bombs with his driver. He's joking around. He's doing the thumbs up. He's doing his fireside with Phil on social media, which is hilarious. But
he's a butt of the joke, but he leans into it, and you can't help but love him for it, kind of.
Absolutely, yeah. It warms you to the guy, but you kind of thought like this was him crossing over into his next career of Champions Tour / like the Nick Faldo in the booth type role.
Well, you kind of felt like the last PGA Championship was that hinge, that inflection point where, man, Phil killed it in the booth. Maybe it's time we start seeing more of Phil in the booth than Phil on the golf course. And so, it was totally unexpected that we'd ever have this.
Yeah, so I guess to answer your question, absolutely it hit me in the feels. I found myself rooting for Phil pretty much all day. I didn't know what to expect. I was all week, I was hoping he would stay within striking distance just to be a story on the weekend and on Sunday. And early Sunday, for sure, I was 100% Phil.
So I think it's a little bit funny because you were always the Tiger guy and I was always the Phil guy. And when
Slash Rory guy.
Yeah. Slash we're both Rory guys, or I?
No,
Phil
you
slash,
were the Rory guy.
Yeah, Craig, you are.
But like when it was Tiger, you're either a Phil guy or a Tiger guy, you know? But when Tiger won in 2019, like that was the most I have ever felt and like been happy about a Tiger win. And I think there's just something about your sports heroes or like, you know, people who are the sports stars once they age, even if they're not guys you cheer for, unless they're Tom Brady, you can feel something when they win.
So wait, what does that make me? The field guy? I'm just the rest of the field?
You've been having a good go of it for the last 10 years.
You can be the Louis guy. You can be the Louis guy. Okay.
The Silver Slam. No, yeah. CBS has to tear up that contract, whatever they had planned for him to go in the booth, because he's got 5 more years of playing in these big ones, because he just got all those exemptions back, back at the in the top 40 of the world. So it's incredible.
I mean, incredible. How much bolder would this win have been if he respectfully declined the USGA's special invitation?
Oh, I know. I was thinking that
just like, no, I'm good. I'll
go through qualifying or win the PGA Championship.
Yeah. He got there on his own eventually. Time was running out, but he got on his own. Okay, so the question I want to ask you guys, talking about the round a little bit, when were you confident that Phil would take this home? I mean, going back all the way to Saturday with 27 holes to play, he had 5 strokes up. That came condensed over the back 9 on Saturday, and then back and forth in the early rounds on Sunday, back and forth with Brooks, and then Louis became part of the question. When did you actually be like, okay, this is happening for Phil?
So for me, it was the birdie on 10. When he made the birdie on 10, I think he went to 8, and everyone else was at 4, I believe. Right. That was when I was like, okay, you know, this is a pretty big cushion. I think, you know, even with a few slip ups along the way, I think he can get it to the house.
See, I agree that I kind of was feeling there was that 4 and 8 point, but then my confidence lapsed because, you know, when he had a couple bogeys. There was the point where Louis had the eagle putt. And when Louis missed that eagle putt, I kind of felt like Louis's chances were slipping away. And then on the par 5, when Phil and Brooks were playing the par 5, and Phil hit his in there, and you know, like, I mean, essentially he's looking at likely birdie there, which it really means. I mean, I was less confident, I think, in Phil potentially, but. He really would have had to blow up and do something ugly. Like it felt like he could sort of coast from that point in.
He could pull a Phil, like, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that drive on 16, the par 5 was incredible, and his approach shot was very good. That was comforting. But then he goes deep enough on 17 where you're like, okay, guys, don't get up quite yet. To me, honestly, it wasn't until his approach shot on 18 where I'm like, okay, like he's not going to bogey and Brooks birdie to like make something.
Yeah, you still had that birdie bogey potential, and we saw that happening throughout the day.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, it wasn't over. It was on 10. It certainly wasn't over, but that's when I was like, okay, I think Phil's comfortable enough here, and has been playing well enough, because even the bogeys he made on the back 9, they weren't like terrible bogeys. Those holes were playing very hard. You know,
and they was close. Like he was just missing a par putt.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was collapsing. And that bogey on 17, even, you know, he hit the safe shot in there. Maybe arguably got a bad break to kick into the long stuff there. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But you know, did what he had to do. He didn't try to take on more than he had to there. He has a 3-shot lead. Take the bogey.
Even his par putt was like just hopping along on like the past ballon.
I know, like, yeah.
Whoa, like hit the brakes here a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see the next question here. Was this a case of Phil winging it Sunday or other players choking? I've got a great answer to this, so I want to throw it to maybe Adam. You should take that one first.
Was it a case of Phil winning or other players choking? I think with the course that was being played, it was Phil winning. Other players, what happened around him, and nobody. If Abe Answer started the day, you know, at even par, it might have been a different story. But that's not what happened. What happened is what happened. and Phil did exactly what he needed to do to win. And I don't think it was other players joking. I think that's just the nature of this course, to be honest.
So part of the reason I posed this question was because people will often talk about, guys not really doing anything on Sunday, just kind of surviving, and other guys maybe crowning them by not charging. But that's what you do in majors. That's what majors demand of you. If it's a 72-hole tournament and you get out into that spot where you can, kind of par your way in or something close to that, you don't have to be the one that's aggressive. You can try to play it a little more safe. And that's what Phil did, especially on the back nine. He didn't put himself in big dangerous situations, and that's what you got to do to win majors.
Yeah.
I don't think he choked, or other players choked at all and crowned him. I think it was 100% Phil playing the way he had to play to win.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, I think there's a lot of things that we can say about the broadcast, and we'll say some of them. But I don't think they did a great job telling us the story today outside of this being a Phil and Brooks and maybe Louis match play. But the top of the leaderboard got absolutely punished by the weather. And this is right. We see all of these names, like Answer went out there and shot 7 under, I think is what he ended up. Rose was a 5 under. A lot of the guys who were +1, +2 had 3 or 4 unders to kind of end up with those backdoor top 10s. And we'll rattle off all the names here in a sec, but it's not a coincidence that happened. It's not like so the last 6 groups that went out on the course, there was one person under par. That was Paul Casey, who finished at -1. So if you think of the Sungjae Connors group, how early they were out there, no one who teed off after them, aside from Paul Casey, got in. Phil and Louis were the second best rounds of those guys, and they were +1. So we had, Brooks was 2, Streelman was 3 over, Bez was 5 over, Grace was 6 over, Bryson was 5 over, Neiman was 4 over, Woodland was 5 over. So what happened when they were making that turn at 4, 5, 6? The wind picked up from like 6 miles an hour to like 15 miles an hour. So that whole stretch they were going into like this brutal wind that no one else, like everyone else was dealing with that wind wherever they were on a course, and maybe they had some of those stretches. But essentially those guys got hammered with the tough wind for that whole stretch. And so it really, it condensed the leaderboard because you had these people who were out earlier, but they didn't really tell that story well, I don't think, on the broadcast.
No, well, you saw all of them dropping back.
You saw it happening, but like Dottie, it felt like at one point she was like there's a lot of people in play out there. Maybe show us some of them. Maybe let us know what's going on, of course. But that's where showing all of these guys struggling on all these holes would have given context to how good. Like Phil played 6 to 13. He played those in even par. None of those other people, even Paul Casey, played those over par. So that is where he essentially won the tournament compared to all these other guys. And they didn't really do a good job of telling us that story.
CBS kind of got lucky that way, that they kind of shook out the guys that were going to challenge, and they kind of sifted to the bottom, and they didn't have to tell a story that they were leaving out anyways because they didn't actually threaten.
So they got lucky, I'd say.
They did get lucky because we were texting each other. We're like, watch out for him. Watch out for Gary Woodland. Like, watch out for Cory Connors, because they're getting to, that par 5 late in the front 9. You're like, okay, they're going to get something. But yeah, like you said, Craig, they just got hammer coming in. But to CBS's credit, and Dottie Pepper again, she gave that tidbit early in the round. This is going back to Phil, about his 2-iron having a crack in the middle of the club face. Like that's the best kind of on-course reporting that we can get, that completely changes the psyche of a guy going into his round. Apparently Tim had to go run to the car, grab his 4-wood or whatever was the replacement club, and put it in his bag. That's wild.
Now, one of the things that really surprises me about that is that they wouldn't actually have a backup 2-iron.
I know.
I thought they did. No,
well, at least from what I heard, I haven't heard any update on it, but I thought they put in a 4-wood, which those clubs are accomplishing 2 very, very different goals. Especially on a windy day where you're going to be playing into it a lot.
Yeah.
I did see.
So I did see Phil's press conference after. He's like, well, the way swing it, it's inevitable that I'm going to be cracking faces. And there's kind of silence. He's like, I'm just joking, guys.
No, but so I did also see him say that like he would be a little like if he never had faces crack or something, he'd be a little choked because there's like essentially the hotter they are, the easier, the more action they have to them, the more likely they are to crack. So he says it's just something that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm golfing differently than that.
Yeah, we're all golfing a little bit differently. Moving on from Phil to Brooks a little bit here. I mean, Brooks, he has those 4 major championships, and we can kind of talk about his history here a little bit. But to me, I'm going to throw this question out to you guys. Do you think his like whole Brooks killer instinct majors on a weekend thing is getting a little bit overrated now, Craig? Like, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, I don't think so at all. I think that, so I think we grossly oversimplify golf and the narratives going into it and everything. I mean, we essentially just kind of put this, I mean, I think this is just something that sports analysts, sports talk radio, sports, whatever it is, do, but like we say, oh, like he's got a killer instinct, or he just needs to want it more, or all of these things. Like, it's just golf is really hard. Like, to me, I give Brooks a ton of credit. We are in, I think, the most stacked generation of golf, the deepest the field has ever been. And I don't think there's anyone there is no one who over the past 5 years has better record in the biggest tournaments than Brooks Koepka. And not just his wins, but we talk about it with Fee now that like, we need to stop just disrespecting people that aren't winning and are getting top tens. Like, it's really hard to be near the top of the leaderboard. And yes, Brooks could have gone out there and shot even par and been in a playoff, but I just rattled off. There was only one person was at or under even par in that wave that went out. So it wasn't easy to do.
I mean, Brooks's major record since 2016 or whenever he got his first one, it's unbelievable, and nobody's even close to it over that stretch. Like, he's like, almost 50%, not quite obviously, but he was almost 50% there for a while with major wins, and when he wasn't winning, he was coming like second or third. Like, he was, but it's unbelievable. But this one, sorry, Adam, but this one, like, he's been a killer. He's proven on 4 separate occasions, all in pretty close, tight fashion, that he came down the stretch and hit the shots he needed to hit and kind of overpowered fields and courses. And despite how poorly he seemed to play today, and like all day it seemed like he was missing shots, he was still a birdie bogey situation away on 18 from being in a playoff.
Yeah. To me, it's just that Brooks has this tendency in press conferences or in the media to kind of puff out his own chest and give the image that he creates of being kind of this macho alpha guy that can't be taken down in majors. But the reality is he was tied with Morikawa going into the final round of last year's PGA Championship, ended T29. He was in the final round here, didn't get it done. He was in the second to last group of the 2019 Masters, and he fell off there a little bit. So he doesn't his major record is outstanding, but his invincibility cloak is kind of a false reality, I think, that he tries to create.
Yeah, I think he tries to create it, but what's the harm? He's just trying to intimidate people, that's part of his...
I think it's just he is, there is the competitive type who needs to manufacture the chip on their shoulder. They need to take 100%. It personally. And Brooks does that, and so he whatever it is, he needs to think that he's the best and he's the closer and he's the killer, and that's the persona he's going to give off. I'm not going to say, I think a killer instinct to me, like I don't really care whether or not the guy is really good at long, difficult courses. Yeah. Sometimes he closes out wins and sometimes he doesn't. I don't think he chokes under the pressure. I don't think anything like that. I think it's just, you're not playing, so many other sports we look at, you're playing against one person, and if you're better than them, you might have a 60-40 chance of winning. We're talking about like Brooks's odds at the start of the day would have been maybe 20%, 25%, something something near that. So chances are he's not going to go out there and win today. But he keeps putting himself in these positions, and you have to beat 150 something guys to win a major.
And don't get me wrong, what he did this week was incredible with kind of what we've seen and with where his health is at, where his knee is at. It's incredible that he just kind of wills himself to these positions. It just kind of seems like the whole kind of when we grew up in the 2000s of, you know, Tiger never lets go of a lead at a major. It's like he almost tried to bring that on himself. But it's it's different. And it's like you said, it's the hardest group of golfers or the best group of golfers we've ever seen throughout history. So any PGA Tour stop, let alone a major, is hard to finish.
But, you know, digging into that a little bit more, I would say that I do give him a killer instinct edge, whatever you want to call it, compared to all of the other top golfers of this generation, whether you want to call like DJ part of this generation or the generation between, Tiger and Phil and the younger crop. But all of the younger crop, no one is even close to Brooks when it comes to
Spieth, when Spieth is in his game.
Spieth kind of has been, and it looks like he might be getting there again, but it's different. Like Spieth has Augusta as kind of in his back pocket where he can go there and be competitive. But I mean, no one. So you look at PGA Championships and US Opens, and no one can hold a candle to Brooks at those. And I think it's just long, difficult courses. He is totally unintimidated by the major environment, and he adds a little bit more, a little bit more of the chip on his shoulder for those weeks.
I mean, let me pose this question to you. Hypothetical, there's a major, every single player in the field is tied. If there's 2 holes left, it's a long par 5 and a long par 4. Like, who would you take on the tee box on 17? Like, Brooks has got to be high up on that list because he seems to hit big shots when he needs to. And that's why he's won majors.
Well, and I think Brooks's mental game is strong. And that, Rory and Justin Thomas right now, it seems like they're showing up to majors and just trying not to screw it up. And like they're trying not to lose it because they feel like they need to get major wins. Whereas Brooks, it just feels like he goes into major weeks just licking his chops and like, I'm going to go out there and win unless someone gets in my way.
And that is why Craig faded him.
Webb Simpson. I'll take Webb Simpson with the 2 holes remaining.
I'm
just gonna find the fairway, guys. I feel pretty good about it. He's got his sun protection. He's not gonna get overheated in the moment. He'll be fine.
So can we just talk briefly about Brooks's day today?
Yeah.
So
what do you want?
What I noticed from Brooks today is, to me, he seemed uncharacteristically loose off the tee. Like he plays that baby fade almost all the time, and it seems to be so deadly consistent for him. That's been a huge weapon for him in these major championships on these long, tough courses. And he was losing it all over the place, like middle of the round. I know wind was involved, but it wasn't only on holes that were into the wind. It was also downwind holes. And then he also, to me, it seemed like he was always trying to like smoke his approach shot. Like whatever he had going in, he was trying to hit like the lower club or the higher club, the shorter club, and just smoke it. And he kept coming up short in these waste areas time and time again. And he did an unbelievable job kind of scoring with where he was on the course.
Yeah, his scrambling did look pretty stellar today, to be honest, to stay in it for as long as he did.
I mean, ultimately, Brooks had a 7 on the first par 5, and then a 6 on the next par 5, and then a 6 on the next par 5. So for him to be as close as he was the more shocking thing about after the first hole when Phil had bogeyed and Brooks had like the cruisiest birdie,
I know, you're just like,
oh my goodness, like Brooks is just gonna run over him and this is over. And then Brooks very quickly makes a 7 on the next hole, and you're like, oh no, like Brooks isn't comfortable out there either.
And then the next hole it went right back to the other way, and then back to the other way.
Great, it was crazy. There was one time,
that 7, I think it was that 7 on the second hole. That to me, I don't know if we want to get into the course yet at all, but so that was when he was right up against that sand. I think it was there that he kind of just had to like chunk the first chip down. Is that the right spot that I'm thinking of? I think it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know what I'm talking about, where he was right up against the bunker, and he essentially just had to try to like chunk the ball down and then chip up from there. But I mean, there's so many things to love about this course, but I loved how Kevin was talking about the wind and how the wind shapes the course, but like there's all these areas, and you know, we call them sandy areas, not bunkers. But like as a maintenance crew, you're always like, oh no, like you got to keep all the sand in the bunker. But it was just like it just flows from the grass into the bunkers, and where it was raked up and over the edge, that's fine, and because it blows out there anyways. And it to me, I like this so much more than Augusta, where like the pine straw is imported and matted down, and you cannot find a piece of anything that has not been intentionally groomed to be that way. We have at a course like this, we've got bunchy rough that, yeah, you might get a fine line, but you might be right up against a thick chunk right behind your ball. And those type of things to me are more like what I like in a golf course and what I look for. It's you feel like you're in a natural environment. And if you keep it on the short stuff, yeah, you can expect nicer lies and groomed things. But if you don't, then you kind of have to take whatever it gives you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one point
I
on
love
10 or
everything
11.
you said. Sorry,
Kevin, we're not going to talk about Augusta. I'm going to get the Tony, pardon the interruption kind of mute button here. Or there was one point on 10 or 11 where Brooks got the hot mic treatment after he hit his tee shot. He said, "Get me out of the fucking," and then it kind of cut out a little bit. I wasn't sure if it was the course or the tournament.
They didn't quite get to that 5-second timer.
It wasn't looking good. The hot mic picked it up. I wasn't sure exactly what it said, but I thought it was interesting because he was running hot for sure and did what he needed to do to still give him a chance, even going into 18 there.
Yeah. Do we want to tangent off onto the course for
let's talk
a second?
about the course.
So Craig, I agree 100% with everything you said. I don't like the Augusta comparison. Why can't you like two things? Why can't you like two flavors of ice cream?
No, totally. But I like, I think they are two different flavors, and I'm just saying that I prefer this type.
I thought this was awesome. I thought this was everything you want in a major venue. To kind of parallel some of the things Craig was saying, I love the randomness of the kind of the rough hazard. Like it's awesome. It's natural golf. That's the way golf was originally played, and I think should still be played. It was incredibly demanding. I think the wind is a huge part of that because, all things equal, if these guys are playing in calm conditions, they hit great shots. They attack these golf courses in a different way than if there's wind involved.
Yeah, and just real quick on that, I think that is a major part of what made Phil excel this week was you're not just laser it, hit your yardage. You have to think through all of the aspects of the shot, and he did that better than anyone.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I was going to say. While it's demanding and the wind adds to that, it rewards good shots and thought out shots. And like you say, Phil was the best at that this week and deserved to win. But I loved the course. I hope they go back there soon because it was just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now, I agree.
I don't know. So the one other thing just on the course and the week, I loved how it evolved through the week. Part of it was just the randomness of Mother Nature, but we had the 2 days of the wind in the one direction, and that showed us how difficult that closing stretch can be, especially I think on, what was it, Friday afternoon was when we saw it the worst. To get that and like see the teeth of the course, and then for yesterday to just be a little bit of a little bit of everything, and today for the wind to really shift and be in the other direction, like that's just a cool evolution that lets you kind of tell a little bit of a different story every day. But then the other thing, letting it brown out, I thought that was super cool too.
I noticed that.
I like to see more brown golf courses on TV. I think that's a good thing.
And I think that played into the final groups having the harder time for sure, because I think it continued to brown out throughout the day today, and it got way harder.
Yeah. So we've talked about Phil, we've talked about Brooks, we've talked about the course. Let's talk about all three here for a second. I'm going to go on a little tangent, but I want you guys to tell me if I'm wrong and kind of my gut reactions I felt here. But coming up 18, we had fans back for the first. It felt like the first fans when we've had in golf, since kind of the COVID pandemic, and as they're hitting their approach shots, they're getting kind of tighter and tighter on the fairway. and they both hit their approach shots, and then this group swarms both Brooks and Phil. And like my first gut reaction is like, get off these guys. I sent out a tweet like, what are you guys doing? Like, give them some space. First off, pandemic aside, it's like that's not what you do on like. Why are you trying to grab Phil's shoulder or Brooks's club or whatever it is? Just give them space. They're on this huge moment in their careers,
and it's not over.
It's not over at all. Why are you grabbing at them? What benefit does that give you at all as a fan to be an inch closer into the space that you shouldn't be? They completely broke the security, and then as they're kind of going up to the green, so they get swallowed in it, they're able to get through. And I feel like even Dottie was saying like she's a few people behind Phil and like finally gets through to the green. And it's all around the green. And it just like, it was cool as an image to be kind of after COVID-19 / kind of in COVID-19, but it didn't feel right to me. It didn't make it just, I felt off about the whole thing. Yeah, it was cool as a sports moment, but it just felt weird. It felt wrong. It felt ill-managed.
Craig, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I agree with you, Adam. I think that there's going to be sort of two very polarizing takes on this. There's going to be like, oh my goodness, like what a cool moment for us all to be a part of. And, everyone was so excited that this joyous crowd, like, no, there was a bunch of liquored people.
Totally.
They were selling beer for, I think, $15 and water for $10. And so, I mean, that's a pretty easy calculation to make if you ask me. But so after 8 hours of watching a golf tournament, you can imagine that not everyone is in the most hydrated of states. But no, like to me, so they lost it early and they never got it back. Like the sides were all fine, but they opened the ropes up behind them before, on the walk up the fairway essentially. And that was just a stupid thing to do because then they could never get that whole pack of people back under control. It looked uncomfortable when they were hitting their shots. I've got some quotes here. Brooks went off about it. I mean, even Phil. So the takes are all going to be as placating to the crowd as they can be, because the last thing you want to do is kind of offend your fans and whatnot. And so
I don't really care about that.
I don't care either. But Phil, when he's up there getting presented the trophy, he's talking about how it's
on
unnerving.
the green. Like, and how about these fans? It's like, well, what is he going to say? Like,
it was totally inappropriate and it was uncomfortable. But, he said it was unnerving at first. And because you could see someone like tried to grab me, like shrugged them off. And it's totally inappropriate. Once we were on the green and it was, a ring around the green, that was kind of cool. It still was like the random drunk person picked up on the hawk mic saying, I can't see shit from back here.
Yeah.
So to me, there is a cool aspect to it, but ultimately I was uncomfortable with it. It if anything, it took away until Phil putted out and I realized they weren't going to actually swarm the green. Then I was like, okay, like it seems like they've regained control of this situation.
Yeah. So for me, and I don't know if this is just because we haven't had fans for a while and I've gotten used to the quiet. But it sure seems to me like fans nowadays are more eager than ever to make it kind of about them and to have their moment. Yeah. Like all through the week, you heard like guys trying to kind of talk to Phil and have like a little schmarmy conversation with him because they've seen him on, have these moments with fans or, just yelling stupid things after tee shots. That's always the case, but it was definitely happening there. But as far as what happened on 18, I think that like it seems to be escalating. Like it was kind of like, when it happened to Tiger at East Lake there, I think it seemed more it's like generic, like it just happened, a little more natural. Whereas now it's like they all the fans want that to happen. And like, I know we talked about how this was a huge historical championship for Phil, but like, it seems like the fans are now pushing what they do when these things are happening. Like they're not just trying to get close. They're trying to like one guy seemed to kind of almost like shake Phil. And like Brooks was saying, he got dinged up quite a bit. Like people are pushing the envelope within these scrums more. And I just think they have to nip it in the bud. Like that,
Sure.
maybe that should be the last time that happens for some time, because it cannot become the norm. And I think if it does, like something bad's going to happen. You know, somebody's going to get hurt or worse.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it's not good.
You gotta joke around. Like, it is like that Happy Gilmore type like crowd where they are like getting liquored up and like pushing limits. And I think you guys both make good points there of like, yes, the fans making it about them, Kevin. I think that's a great point. I think Brooks' comments are worthwhile mentioning, because he said that people were like, his knee was at stake. And I think, you know, people will have
I have them here if you, I'll just read off real quick. I mean, I've got a bunch here, but I'll just read this one because I think it kind of captures it. It would have been cool if I didn't have a knee injury and got dinged a few times in the knee in that crowd, because no one really gave a shit. Yeah. I mean, essentially, so here's the other one I think that captures it. I don't mind waiting or being in that crowd. I don't know. It felt like somebody tried to, I don't know what the deal was. I'll be putting it on ice tonight. It feels like shit right now. So, you know, we have someone who potentially, like, once Phil, with where Phil's shot was, it was never really in doubt that he would 3-putt that for bogey. But like ultimately even on the approaches, like the golf tournament wasn't done. A little bit of a tangent, but the other thing that I noticed, I forget what hole it was, but it was one of these ones with sort of an amphitheater feel. And I would say 95% of the crowd is holding up their phone to capture the video. And I'm just like, I saw one guy like not just standing there watching him. Like, I'm so happy for that guy. Like, that's the guy that I want to be when I'm there in that moment, because he's going to remember that moment, and his friend beside him is going to have the video. So if he really wants the video from his point of view, he can just get that one. Or you could watch the friggin' broadcast. You know,
which will be a better video.
And you'll be in it, but instead of your phone covering your face, you'd be like, yeah, that was me. I was right there when Phil made that putt. I just think it's ridiculous. And you know, I don't want to harp on it too much, but
let's be clear. Like, this is probably like a handful of fans that are doing all these things that we're becoming aware of. You know, like the vast majority of these fans are probably very respectful, you know, golf fans. But it just the extreme now is getting unpalatable to me personally. Yeah. Maybe it's just because I'm getting old. I don't know.
And we can't excuse it, just be like, oh, we got to make sure the fans are happy and like cater to them. I completely agree with that take. And I think Brooks is completely in his right to say that. Like, yeah, he put on this hit, like in his own right, without Phil there, his historic performance to challenge the entire time with like whatever percent of a knee you want to call it. Like, we'll probably hear after the fact that his knee was like 40% the entire weekend and he just never said anything. But when people are clawing at him, like, that would piss me off too. That would be super frustrating.
Yeah. I think the other thing, it's not that I don't like, I don't mind even a bit of a raucous. Like, I don't mind, you know, people openly rooting for Phil, totally. And like, oh, that sucks for the guy playing with him. Like, that's fine. It's just when it starts to become stupid. Like,
you love the pressures of the crowd.
The fact that Phil said it was unnerving but cool, it's like he clearly was unsettled by the whole thing. Yeah. Like,
and I think, honestly, I think it took a little. I mean, Phil did not seem like he was really enjoying himself after he won. The one moment my favorite moment, I think, was they caught, I think, the tail end of him talking to his wife on the phone. That was the one moment where it felt like he a little bit was like, you got past the facade for a second. But he was very much in like PR mode, I feel like. I mean, he talked about how he didn't want to get ahead of himself throughout the whole event. And it felt like even afterwards, he still was like not trying to let it run away from him the moment, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure it'll continue to sink in over the next few days and weeks.
That's a lot of time on Brooks, Phil, Sunday. We haven't really talked about Usti, though. Let's give Usti a couple minutes here. Usti was a big part of the conversation for the majority of the day. He had that eagle putt on 16, which I feel like would have really kind of shifted things a little bit. And I think he hit that putt exactly how he wanted to, because he was shocked when it didn't fall to the right into the cup there. But ultimately, I think I saw a stat where he didn't make more than 2 putts outside 8 feet on the entire weekend. What do you guys think about Usti? Like, I'll throw it to you, Kevin. What do you think about the performance from Usti?
I mean, I have a huge soft spot for Usti. I want him to win these tournaments, but like realistically, I never thought he would today. You know, as soon as you think, oh, like he makes the birdie on 12, you know, he's closed the gap a little bit. Phil's got these hard holes to go through. He doubles 13. You know, he hits a terrible shot into the water. And he did get a bad break there to end up where he was in that bunker, but I mean he got out of that fine. And you know, maybe give yourself a chance at par, but not a double. You know, make a bogey, but not a double. It just takes you out of it. And I never really felt like he was gonna be able to pull it off.
Yeah. What about you, Craig? I mean, you're always high on Usti. You were high on him on DFS.
Listen, I think Usti did exactly what he needed to do. He knew that this was Phil's moment. He's like, I need to, you know, sometimes you're gonna win Best Actor. Sometimes you're just gonna nail Best Supporting Actor. And maybe, you know, they're probably putting 2 up for this movie. They're putting both Brooks and Louis up, but you know, he knew it was Phil's show. I actually think, you know, talking about Louis to me can kind of kick us into a different conversation, because I think Louis is a bit of a hard guy to figure out, but he's the type of golfer that he is a little bit hard for me to figure out. So Louis has now 9 top 10s in majors.
Mm-hmm.
7 of those top 10s are 3rd or better. So
and one win,
including a win. So he's got a 3rd, he's got 5 seconds, and he's got a win. So he's one of these guys that when he gets up into the conversation, he's like very, very close. It's not, you know, maybe I'd have to look a little bit more at all of these, but they're not really like backdoor, not relevant to the tournament thing. So I think, to me, Louis is more of a gamer almost. Like, I'm really trying to figure out why some of these guys that we see week to week play so well, very consistently, you know, like maybe teasing my stock down a bit, but like a Daniel Berger, or maybe even a Tony Finau, who I know we're all fans of, but like I'm trying to figure out what makes guys like a Louis Oosthuizen, or even like a Shane Lowry, who, you know, or a Paul Casey, like guys who, like, when they do well, they're getting very high up those leaderboards in these big tournaments, but they're not necessarily consistently grinding every tournament throughout the year. And I don't quite know what to put my finger on it, but it feels like there's something there.
So can I tell you what I think? I think it's being mentally strong and knowing that you're gonna get punched in the face at some point in this tournament, in this round. And being very, very gritty and grinding out like pars or whatever you need, whatever you can get on that hole. And guys like Lowry, guys like Usti, you know, a lot of the guys that are the best major performers of all time, that's what they do. They just grind and grind and grind. And it's a different kind of golf. Like, it's not like hit to your number, have a putt for birdie. It's like,
and make
all
or
these
miss,
other,
and then move on to
make or miss and go on to that. No, it's like, it's hard. There's all these other factors. The pressure's intense. Just grind, make the shot. Like you say, it's kind of the gamer mentality a little bit. I think you're right with that. But major golf is different than every week golf. It's just a different beast.
But it is interesting, like the guys that got top 10s, and I want to jump here right away here. Morikawa, Rahm, Scheffler, Finau. They're going to have a top 10 when it's all said and done. They're going to have a top 10, but they were never really threatening.
Answer, Rose, Zalatoris.
Usti's second. He was part of the conversation the entire time, and he was part of it. He fell back, come back in. Like, he's around the entire time. He's part of the story. These backdoor top 10s, you're not really part of the story. You're part of a top 10 in the record book, and you get a nice paycheck, really.
Well, and you know what, like, I don't necessarily, it's not to their detriment, I wouldn't say, that they played very good golf over the course of 72 holes and they ended up in the top 10. It's more, there's some people that I feel like maybe it's a little bit, they have all the tools, like a Shane Lowry, like he has all of the tools, but it's not like, say, a Tony Finau where his ball striking gives him such a edge every week, every round, that he can kind of lean on that over the course of a season. Whereas Shane Lowry, like, he can go out there for a tournament and on a very hard course, and he can just play golf all the way through it. But he's not necessarily he's not dominant enough off the tee or on approach or anything that over the course of a season is going to be like, oh yeah, clearly like this guy is statistically right up there on the money list.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at a little bit was a lot of those guys that I mentioned can swing easier on Sunday because they're not part of it. So they kind of get these backdoor top tens because they're not part of the picture, and it's just they're not part of it. So they can go out and swing like it's a Thursday at whatever PGA Tour stop, you know?
Yeah, and let's face it, like we already talked about, like the weather played into those guys
into today for sure,
in a huge way.
Like I think some of the other ones who fell off of those later groups got a little bit robbed of a major top 10 because of the conditions they faced.
Yeah. So I saw this earlier on Twitter and I love it. So I'm going to call it the classic Wikipedia highlighted top 10, because when you look back at their career, they're going to have that bright yellow as a top 10 in a major, but were they ever in this story at all? And there's a big whack of guys that are part of it. Answer: Rose, Morikawa, Rahm, Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, Rickie Fowler, Tony Finau, all of them are going to have that top 10 at the 2021 PGA Championship. But were any of them really in the conversation on Saturday, Sunday?
Tip of the cap to Rickie Fowler. You know,
love seeing
best result we've seen from him in a while. So you do.
Almost,
although
could have got that Masters.
I was going to say, although that putt that he missed is going to be a haunting one.
It's tough.
On that note, Harry Higgs tied for fourth. He's getting a Masters invite next year.
First Masters invite.
First major for him.
Yeah.
This was his first major.
This was his first major. He had an awesome Friday where he shot like back-to-back 40-foot bombs.
Yeah, and just like birdie 17, 18.
And now just because I feel like we've gone through basically the whole top 10 here, but Lowry, as we had mentioned, was part of the group tied for four, and Patty Harrington.
Talk about gamers. Talk about mentally tough, grindy gamers. Patrick Harrington, the Ryder Cup captain for Euro, comes out of nowhere to get a top 4.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was trying to get a little bit of work done in the garden before the day started. The first thing I saw when I turned on coverage was Padre Harrington to stiffen it on 2. I'm like, that's for eagle? Like, okay, this is gonna be an interesting day.
What a stud that guy is, eh?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think between him and Steven Stricker, I wonder how many Ryder Cup players lost to their captains this week. Stricker was
incredible.
+4, tied for 44th. There's a lot of the U.S. team that would be behind him, looking up at him.
It's so funny, like going back to the waste management. I mean, Ryder Cup captains that were outside 300-400 in the world that have had like these kind of like honorable mention type performances at these PGA Tour / major stops. It's incredible. Like, it's super cool.
So you think Phil's gonna work his way onto another Ryder Cup team now, or what?
Yeah,
playing captain next time around, or
I mean, if we want to talk about it, I think he is.
Well, so I mean, I feel like have we given Usti his? I mean, I love Usti. I think we're gonna see. We'll have chances to talk about Usti at future majors, hopefully with a first place next time. I like this one. So, did it at any point to you guys feel like anyone other than those three, Phil, Brooks, and Usti, did you ever feel like anyone had a shot?
Well, I mean, this could be a bit of a segue into coverage takes a little bit, but I didn't really get to see anybody else.
No.
So it was frustrating because I think it was pretty clear that you needed to make some moves early, but there's a lot of players that were kind of right around that even 1 under mark that if they made some birdies or eagles early, they could get right back into the conversation. And you just didn't see any of their shots. So no, I didn't really think anybody was. Like I thought going into the day that yes, there's a number of guys that had a chance to at least climb the leaderboard. But I mean, they weren't showing me anything, so I assumed nothing was happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating when a betting website across the ocean has quicker, faster shot tracker updates than you're getting on A, coverage, and B, the official app, or C, the PGA Tour app. Like it's crazy, but that's how I was watching most of the day. And I was, watching Matt Fitzpatrick. I was watching Patrick Cantlay, Sungjae Im, Cory Connors. All these guys I felt like had moments where they could have made a move, but was completely untouched from the coverage or the story of them making that. They did all fall out, so it was a non-story at the end of the day. But I thought early in the round that those guys had chances.
And they did decide to choose one of them and show Gary Woodland, but then continued to show him for his full meltdown. They would never show him again.
Because Woodland to me was like the one guy, and maybe it's just because they showed him, but he got to 4 under. So he started 2 under. He had 2 birdies in his first 3 to get to 4 under. And Gary Woodland is a guy that I've been having a hard time figuring out, because he's had a few very good finishes, top 5s, top 10s for sure, but I think in the top 5s. And then he's also just totally ejected from some tournaments because he has health issues with his hip. But so then, speaking of these guys that got hammered when they went into the wind, he was at 4 under. He played that 6 through 13 stretch at 6 over par. So he just got hammered when they were going into the wind, and never really had a sniff after that.
Honestly, the final leaderboard looks nothing like the tournament to me felt like.
Yeah.
Like Brandon Grace finishes T38, Bryson finishes T38, Gary Woodland's T38, like all those guys had chances coming into the day. Bez is at T30, Neiman's at T30. Like what happened at the end of the day did not feel like the story of the tournament, at least even on early Sunday.
Yeah, but that's to me where like the rub of the green is that those guys got a little bit. And I mean that's how golf is.
Yeah,
when you're playing on a course that's so affected by wind when the wind's not consistent throughout the day, some people are going to get lucky and some people aren't. But like Grace, 5 over in that stretch of holes I'm talking about. All these other guys, Streelman, Bez, Bryson, they were all 3 over in that stretch. So it was really like those guys got eaten up by that stretch of golf.
So it was a little bit unfortunate that happened, like for so many of the groups in a way, because it was like anybody kind of within striking distance got hammered, whereas some of these guys that were, the Answers or the Roses that put up like a -5 or -7, they were too far back to really ever get into it. But it would have been nice to see somebody around even or 1 under make a charge, but it just, that's not the way it unfolded.
Yeah. So really you did end up with that very bunched chase group that never really had much of a chance.
Yeah.
And it's bad when they're fabricating Patrick Cantlay, like, birdie eagle, he's in it. No, it's not gonna happen. I don't think.
Patrick Cantlay actually was for a moment there. It looked like he might have a chance, and he couldn't make a friggin' putt.
Patrick Cantlay just like a little bit. I feel like this is gonna be so hard on him mentally, because I mean he's a good putter, and like he has a good short game, and his ball striking was so good this week. Like you're not going to have so many times where your ball striking's that good at a major that, like he gained over the course of all 4 rounds. He was over 3 strokes gained per round with his ball striking, and he just lost gross amounts of strokes with his short game.
It's like you're really just like inching up on the hole, like every single hole. Okay, let's get it into the tap-in range and let's clean up whatever this is. Hopefully it's an eagle putt or hole out for eagle, which he did.
Yeah, but it's just, that's one of those things that kind of to me speaks to, how deep the current crop of players is. Like if Patrick Cantlay has his short game this week, there's a pretty good chance that he wins this tournament. And Patrick Cantlay is a guy, like, he's currently ranked 12th in the world, but he's someone that you could easily see having a major or a couple majors, and he's not even close to like who we talk about as like the top crop of guys. So there's just there's so many people out there right now that have a chance that, it's a tangent, but.
So let's segue into some guys who didn't have good putting weeks and talk about some missed cuts, because there's a few surprises. So I want to know who surprised you guys with missed cuts. I mean, the 3 notable ones, I'll throw them out there. Anyone can grab them. DJ, JT, Xander Schauffele. Someone grab a guy here. Who is the most
So for
surprising?
me, it was for sure Xander. Out of those three, DJ and JT, I don't think either of them had, great form coming in. You think DJ, of course, he could have won it just as easily as he could have missed the cut, you feel like. But Xander is just usually so steady. I was really surprised that Xander didn't make the cut.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'll double down on that one. He was 40 on his last 9. He kind of got, he was out Friday afternoon in the worst of the weather, but those guys who are out in the worst of it on Friday had the best of it on Thursday. So it's not like there was a huge wave imbalance or anything, but he just, he couldn't hang out there in the bad weather. He shot a 40 to go and miss the cut on the number, and yeah, just really sloppy.
I mean, I completely saw the JT coming. He was my fade. I knew that from a mile away. But when he birdied 17 and then he had a good chance to birdie 18 on Friday, I was like, he's going to get into this thing and then he's going to backdoor into a top 10, like classic superstar type performance. But he missed the cut. And then DJ was off even my pick to win. As he's DJ and like Kevin said, he can miss the cut or show up and win, and neither would surprise us. And it was a missed cut this week. So. He's just so nonchalant.
Speaking of backdoor top 10s, Rom, who said he hated the course, had his nice backdoor top 10. And then
he said he hated it?
Yeah.
Oh, he was like, yeah, he was ready.
I know he was choked. I didn't know he said he hated the course.
He just was hating everything, I think, about life at that point. You know how Rom
I haven't slept in 3 weeks.
He's a classic truck slammer after a round, eh?
But anyways, aside from that, first guy first player that I noticed, Greet and Phil. I think they have a good relationship. He went to ASU, Arizona State. Yeah. So nice to see that for sure.
Yeah.
And then a bevy of other pros there to greet. I think Phil is very well liked by a lot of those guys.
But didn't Rom kind of poke the bear a little bit this week after Thursday when he said, what did he say about Mickelson?
I don't
Do you guys
know.
see that quote that came through? It was on PGA Tour Twitter. I'm going to try to pull it up quickly, but basically he's like, well, if Phil can go 4 under on the back 9 here, then anybody can.
I think nobody poked the bear as much as Joel Damon. He woke a sleeping giant.
Yeah,
I know.
He
I saw
tweeted about that.
Oh, did he?
That.
Yeah.
He's like, you're welcome for kind of giving him the motivation or whatever.
So just on that note real quick, because this is one thing that we glossed over, and I think it's essentially like one of the main reasons that Phil has not been on anyone's radars, but there's been so much talk about his mental game. And like we saw, was it Quill Hollow? That he came out and was the first round leader there and then just kind of disappeared over the course of the week. So, we've known for a while that his game, his talent level is still there, still good enough. But really,
I don't think that's
he's
ever
been
been
open about the concentration and the focus being the issue, which just the candor in which he's talking about it and the just how granular he's getting about talking about his mental game. I think it's interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it for so long. How do you keep getting up for it all the time? Right?
He was my sleeper pick, I think, at Wells Fargo. I felt I was doing victory lap after round 1. Little do I know,
would have been a good sleeper pick this week.
Like a couple of weeks early. If he didn't go -7 +7 through that tournament, I probably would have been like, oh, he didn't burn me last time. Maybe I'll go back there because he is playing. But no, I'm a fool.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks too early.
But there's so much improbable about this aside, his age. But then, we know Phil as this guy that sprays the ball everywhere.
I'm such an idiot.
I'm such an idiot. This is the longest course in major history. We've got a 50-year-old
with trouble everywhere.
We've got all of these young bombers who are struggling, and it's these more accurate, keep it in the fairway players who are really excelling. And Phil Mickelson comes out here and plays the best golf of anyone, number 1 tee to green. I just am so
improbable.
You know what?
I'm still sort of in disbelief.
Yeah. I think he got it, like the wind and like you say, Phil's talent and his ability to think through the shots they're absolutely pivotal. And I don't think a lot of the players have that right now.
Do you think because of how demanding it was that kept him sharpened in the moment.
Yeah, I do. For sure.
I think that's a good point. Okay, guys, let's move
That's
on.
the first time I've ever had a good point.
You floored us there.
Concise point, yeah.
And I'm out.
Yeah. Call it. Thank you, everybody. On our preview show, we have a bold predictions. Let's recap those now because I think those are always fun. So I'll kick it off. I said I think the record for oldest major championship will fall. I can't believe I made it. Okay,
you know what's funny is we teased Stuart Sink could become the second oldest to win a major champion.
It was right there staring at us in the face.
Well, to be fair, no one saw this coming.
We need to swing for the fences though, not the second place.
Yeah.
Okay, so my bold prediction was 4 of the top 10 would be under the PGA average in driving distance. I thought, distance was going to be overblown. I was a little bit off. I was looking at the top 10. I think I got Answer, Morikawa there, Streelman. There's the guys up there that aren't exactly bombers. Padraig somehow is in the top half in PGA distance. I didn't expect that. Shane Lowry, there's a couple guys that are creeping around the 100th mark, and I thought they'd be closer to 175, but ultimately my bold prediction was off.
I mean, you did have a bit of a break there that there's 1,000 people in the top 10.
It also helps with 16 guys who are in the top 10.
I was only going to do the top 7, T4 or better, but then I was going to do 40% of the top 16, neither of which fit my narrative, so I just Okay, who do you got next, Craig? What's yours?
So I had Hovland with the top 3. You said bold prediction, so I wanted to be bold. It was close. He was just 6 strokes out of top 3, which doesn't sound so bad until you hear that his place being 6 strokes out was 30th.
It's not bad.
You're 1-0 away, really.
Yeah.
What was yours, Kevin?
So my bold prediction was that Bryson was going to finish outside the top 30, and he did me a favor today and plummeted down the leaderboard.
Didn't you say top 40? Didn't we?
I thought we made you move it to top 40.
No, Craig said top 30 was okay. You wanted me to move it to top 40. I think we can all agree that break he got on Saturday where he hit that camera tower and dropped it in the fringe instead of being in the schmag that's where it shifted. That would have put him in the top 50.
Yeah, but for that.
Yeah, but for that.
Okay, guys, restarts time.
So one thing just real quick, because this has fallen into the Saturday morass, but Phil and Louis were playing in the final group together on Saturday on 13. Both of them had the right miss, and Phil did not go up and dropped. He felt that it probably didn't cross and re-teed because it wouldn't have crossed the hazard anywhere else. In retrospect, if he would have, got into a playoff or something like that, that could have been a very costly decision to not push and to try to maybe push the rules as far as he felt he could have. But just a stand-up move, maybe bought him some karma with the golf gods and got the chip in on, what was that, 5 today as a little reward.
As a reward, I like that.
He also was the first one to say when Louis hit in the hazard that it went over the fairway.
It crossed, yeah.
He told him right away. He's like, it crossed.
And I think it did.
And to be, I think Louis was getting eaten up a little bit about that, but that's Phil's call as the referee in the group for Louis, right? That he's making that call. So
and
I think though, to me. I did the whole Google Earth analytics on this and got my headings from the shot trackers and things like that. But I think Louis clearly would have gone over the, crossed the hazard up by the fairway. I think Phil's potentially did as well. But so that's where I do think he could have pushed it. But yeah, until we have a better system for this is going to be what we continue to have.
I also did my analytics on it. I watched both blimp shots, and I'm pretty sure that Louis it did come out more. Phil's was more direct into the water.
I think that those blimp shots though just do a disservice to.
They do because they're not. It's not like directly
overhead. It wasn't even close, and it's like, well, no, but think about how often you see it flying in, and then it it like bounces and you're like, huh, I didn't think that was close to the ground yet. Like that was kind of playing with me from that angle. But yeah, anyways, I think we need to move to a system where we have TrackMan and actual mapped things, and then you could see on a nice little graph whether it crossed or not, and then go and drop in that spot.
I was thinking about this. I think on every tee box where that can happen, we need a TV and a challenge like they have in tennis, like in or out. So then like challenge, and then everyone looks up at the TV, and then it just has like that silly animation where the ball goes in and it's like vote 3T3.
No, but to be honest, like I know it's not something that we are logistically going to have on every shot throughout the courses, but on a hole like that, technologically we could have a TrackMan and we could have the line of the thing, and it could be very clear, like you go to the, you know, there's an official there that is like, you go to this spot and that's where you have your drop. And instead of it just being like, so like, hey buddy who I'm going to share my private jet ride home with afterwards, like where do you think it crossed? It's just silly. It's silly like, how we're doing this
on
right
the flip side of that, in Corrales Punta Cana we have a score that's posted as 4 under on the PGA Tour app, and 15 minutes later is posted at 6 over. So you're like, huh, I guess the volunteers on the ground, they're mixed up players or something.
Yeah, if you're relying on volunteers, and like, yeah, I get your point, Adam. I totally get your point.
Yeah, I think that we can get there. I think we can get to a better state.
For sure. 3 stars. Third star, pretty simple this week, guys. Louis Oosthuizen, 5th runner-up at a major since 2012, most of any player in golf. That should be applauded and not seen as anything else. He has a silver slam. He always had it. He still has it. Runner-up finishes in all 4 majors.
Just one more notch on the belt.
Just one more notch on the belt. Yeah, it's a good performance. I don't think it's anything to hang the head. It's a very good performance. Second star, Brook Skepka. Like I said kind of earlier, I think we're going to hear that his knee was worse than it was and that he was kind of putting on a brave face. I fully respect his comments after the crowd on 18. I think he gave an incredible performance. I think he is just kind of living major by major until he gets healthy again. And as golf fans, we should just like be in awe of that he's able to put up these performances. I mean, every 4 times a year, like it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing just on Brooks real quick, I do think that, you know, his reputation is not necessarily stellar, but he can be brash before events. I feel like he's generally like quite respectful of his opponents afterward. Like it seems to me, I haven't been paying enough attention, but it seems to me in these majors that he has been competitive and not got it done. He's quick to congratulate.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is 2019 PGA with Dustin. Didn't he say something about him only having one? Or
yeah, he did. And that's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, I think he is very respectful to his like competitors. I don't think he's cocky and kind of brash, but that's almost more of like a hype tactic on his part. I don't think that other players would have much of a problem with the way he plays. He plays fast, you know. I don't think he gets in guys' face or anything. He just lets his game speak for itself. He kind of bullies them with the shots.
After he's spoken for himself at the press conference and said how he's the best. And then he goes out there and tries to let his game show that.
Yeah. I guess he doesn't just let his game speak for him. He also speaks for himself and then lets his game back it up.
Yeah.
First star, Phil Mickelson. A couple stats to read out. This is from Justin Ray on Twitter. He posted this kind of as he won, but oldest men's professional to win a major, 50 years old. We know that. 14th golfer to win 6+ majors. Ties Walter Hagen at 9th all-time in PGA Tour wins with 45. At 115th in the world coming in, was the lowest ranked player to win a major since, is it Shawn Michael?
Sean McKeel.
2003 PGA, who was 169th at the time. So that's almost been 20 years there. And
you can tell who the youngest brother is. It's Sean McKeel, Adam.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
I was still young there. Entering the week, this one's just ridiculous. 176 in the PGA in strokes gained tee to green, and then was first this week because we all saw it coming. The one other thing I liked I saw today, someone was like, Phil winning this one is like Joaquin Neiman winning the 2049 PGA Championship. Just to put the years in perspective a little bit.
Well, I saw a tweet from Shane Bacon today that perfectly summarized it. He says, it would be the perfect explanation of the longevity of Phil Mickelson's career if he somehow becomes the oldest major winner in golf history while remaining the last amateur to win a PGA Tour event. So he's gone 91. He was an amateur that won a PGA Tour event. 2021, he's the oldest to win a major. That's incredible. It truly is.
I tried to explain how awesome that was to my wife, and she was like, well, why wasn't he a professional yet? I'm like, well, like, no, like in golf, there's like this complicated thing. Like they stay amateur and then they have to turn pro. And like, so she's like, why did he play in a pro tournament? Like, why didn't he just turn pro and then he would have got paid? And I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of good questions you're asking that I have answers for here.
And it is true that for a long time, Phil was known as like this junior player, this amateur player who was incredible. Like he was known as like the young hotshot, like up and coming guy.
When Spieth was coming out, like he played. I want to say he played in a PGA tournament when he was 17.
Phil did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was known about in golf circles for a long time before he came onto the tour. You know, like he was known as a young guy, and now he's gonna be known as the oldest. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, going back to that Tiger dog, I think a comment in there was like Tiger kind of hated him because it just came all so naturally to Phil, while Tiger seemed to like work his ass off, and Phil's just like, show up and I got all. You want to see a cool shot around the green? I got that. Like
but honestly, and this does a lot to dispel like this. You know, if you felt like Phil rode on his talent and not on being a grinder, winning a major championship at 50 and doing everything he's done over the last 5 years to put himself in a physical and mental position to be able to do it, like that's to be applauded for sure.
It is for sure to be applauded, but something you said earlier, Craig, that I wanted to address is like the talent has never been the question with Phil. Like he's still, shooting that 7 under at Wells Fargo. Everybody knows Phil will always have the talent. As long as he's playing money games, he's going to make sure that talent is sharp too. So
Fig jam.
Yeah,
the talent has never been the problem. It's just stringing it together.
Yeah.
Okay. DFS picks segment. Let's move on. Pardon me. To our picks that we post on Twitter. Not good this week, guys. Not good. Let's go to the bottom one here. One and done. I had DJ miscut. You guys both had Rory, who finished at a T49, and is this right? A check of just under 25,000.
That's right.
Oof.
No blood on those.
That doesn't pay for fuel on the plane ride home.
Yeah, that's a lot of work for a $25,000 check.
I feel like where really fell apart for Rory was, I think on Friday he went bogey. He had got it to even, played a great round where he wasn't getting the most out of it, but got to even, and then he bogeyed the last 3 and +3 and never got anything going again.
Yeah. A little bit poor from our sleepers. I had Peters for a miscut. Kevin had Homa for a miscut. Craig had the best one with Joaquin Neiman at T30, but is also by far the shortest. Worth noting, by far the shortest sleeper.
Well, also by far one of these guys that got screwed over. I mean, he was at -2 going into the day. He's part of the Bez, Brandon Grace crew that got screwed over by the worst conditions. So I'll give myself a top 10 on that one.
I'm glad.
That's generous.
Good thing it's meaningless then.
Right.
Fade's pretty good. We had I had JT miscut. Kevin had Bryson at T38. That's a pretty good fade. And then the classic fade bump, the bulletin board material. Craig went back to back with Brooks, just feeling his fire, and that fueled him to a T2. So I mean, good on you being his hype man, Craig.
Now the one thing I would say is I was telling Adam that after Brooks last week had gotten through the week and not collapsed, I was like, man, I'm not feeling good about my Brooks fade. I was when we were doing our pod last week, and Adam's like, we penciled them in. Does anyone want to change? I was like, yeah, like I really kind of want to change.
Heart's beating a little bit faster. And then top game, we all had Cory Connors.
Sure.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Never going to fade Brooks again in a major, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Cory Connors, he actually had a chance going into the day, I thought. He also was one of the guys who was had the tough weather stretch, but he grinded out better than a lot of them. So,
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, good for him jumping out to a first round lead. I think he probably wish he could have, held on a little bit better to that lead or to that number, but it's a hard course and it demands a lot of you, and his putter wasn't quite there all week. So, or besides the first round, it wasn't quite there. So
yeah, to finish with the top 20 is still very, very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ball striking.
Great golf. Okay, we still had European Tour fantasy racer to buy because the majors and WGCs all count. Rory Groom had the best team with Rory's squad as his team. Pretty straightforward there. He had Paul. Hey,
is it Rosie's squad or Rory's
squad? No, it's Rosie's squad. He had Paul Casey at captain, and the rest of the team all making the cut. I was just scrolling through a couple teams. Not many had all through the cut, so that's pretty good. Okay, guys, good bets, bad bets, red bets, green bets. What happened for you guys at the PGA? How's the betting / DFS week for you?
Mine was a bloodbath. Starting with what I was really hyped on getting Sam Burns at 50-1. Sam Burns withdrew after 9 holes. That was a burn. Homo went out with a bang there early. Yeah, I think he was 2 under through 9 in the afternoon, I want to say, on Thursday. I thought he was playing great, and then he ended up going 6 over, I think, or finishing at 6 over, so 8 over on the back or something like that. So that quickly fell apart. And yeah, that was kind of the story of my week.
Craig, how's your DFS week?
Well, a lot of potential. I ended up, it was a slight loss, but I mean, first off, I'm not going to listen to you again and start FOMOing on DJ and then sliding ownership over to DJ when I was feeling pretty good about my convictions on DJ being a fade this week.
From who? From Rory?
So no, from Rom. I didn't have any Rory. But no, fair. It was a slight loss. But I had 7 of 20 lineups get through with 6 of 6s, and so it's just like a very disappointing. Unless Louis was the only guy of the top 3 that I had, so he would have had to win. But man, Daniel Berger's got to stop making cuts and then just doing nothing. Maybe I'm gonna harp on him a little bit too much because he really was an anchor on a lot of lineups and not an anchor in a good way.
Yeah, no, I really like Berger as well, but same thing. I had no Phil, no Brooks, and that makes it a losing DFS week pretty quickly. Still good 6 of 6s, but chasing that big one.
Yeah. Not a bad week though. I mean, the thing when you get 6 of 6s, you get lots of cashes. They're just not very high. So
yeah. Okay, guys, stock up, stock down. Craig, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going. So, I kind of shot my shot here already, but Paul Casey, really, it's just what I was talking about with of the 6 final groups. So 12 golfers we're talking about. No one else was even at even par, and he was 1 under. So he really outperformed everyone who was playing anywhere close to him on the golf course at the time. So yeah, that's my stock up. I think Paul Casey, the stock wasn't super low coming into the week, but I really hope that we do see Paul Casey close one of these out. We're running out of starts and we're running out of years here.
Yeah, for sure.
And stock down, I've alluded to it, Daniel Berger. I don't want to harp on the guy too much, but it's just he's kind of right now being the icon, he's emblematic of this type of golfer. I'm feeling like that is playing very, very well week to week on the PGA Tour and not necessarily being the gamer that you need to go out there in a major and sort of take it to that next level. I'd be curious to know whether you guys perceive him as that kind of player or where you're at on Berger.
Yeah, I mean, my emotions changed pretty quickly because I was very heavy on him for DFS. He came out with an absolute stinker on Thursday. And then Friday, speaking about being a gamer, from not watching,
he did work to make the cut
from the shot tracker. It was just like pin after pin, like 6 feet, 2 feet, 15 feet. Get that in for birdie. Like he looked like from the shot tracker again, just from the shot tracker, but like he wasn't going to be forced out of the conversation, and he battled back from way back to get inside the cut, kind of comfortably on. I think what ended up being the hardest day out there. So I like that in terms of the gamer aspect, but his rounds, his tournaments seem very, very hard to predict to me.
Yeah. And I'll echo that. I have no feel for Berger. I truly want to be a fan of Berger, but I don't know where to put him. And unfortunately, because of the way he's kind of all over the place, you don't get to necessarily see a lot of him on TV. So
yeah.
it's tough.
And the thing that I struggle with is he has all the tools. You know, he's one of these guys, kind of like a Cantlay or a Rahm, or I mean, a lot of the top players have all the tools, but he's got 2 top 10s in 20 major starts, which hasn't been in the top 10 since 2018. He's never finished better than 6th, so he's never even been in the top 5. It just, and I know he's battles injuries and other things like that, but I just kind of feel like he's kind of got to get on it if he is going to be the kind of guy, like if he's going to contend in majors.
Yeah. What about you, Kevin? Moving up, moving down.
So moving up, I wanted to give a shout out to Rickie Fowler. Obviously his best result in quite some time, tied for 8th. He played pretty solid. You know, he had a tough day on Friday, like many guys did, but he went 71, 76, 69, 71. So today, in the tough conditions, he was bogey free until 18. 2 birdies on the card. Unfortunate bogey, because as we talked about, that would have had him in a tie for 4th, which would have got him into next year's Masters. Hopefully, you know, he's going to use this as a springboard to kind of turn it around and, you know, qualify easily for the Masters next year. But it moves him up from 128th in the world to 101. And yeah, like I said, I just hope he can build off it. I think I really feel like he's a good ambassador for the game. And it's easy to say, but the game is better off with him in it. Like he genuinely seems to like doing the charity work and everything, you know, around golf that makes it better for everybody, in a more positive place. And I just think it's better with him there. So he's my stock up.
And I think he's a little bit choked because Rahm jumped him in line to congratulate Phil. He likes to be the first one there. But yeah, no, I mean, the one thing promising about Rickie this week, he gained over a stroke around putting, which, you know, normally you're like, oh no, he just did it with his putter. Like, that's what we need to see from Rickie is, you know, and he was great. He was good tee to green, but his putter was kind of the real strength of his, I think. And so,
well, and I really just I like to see, to have 2 birdies, the rest pars, and 1 bogey at the end. Like, that's good, solid, steady play on a hard day, on a hard course, you know, just that's consistent. It's good. It makes me hopeful for him. That's the main reason for the stock up.
And maybe it's just me, but have you guys seen him rocking the all orange for a while? I
don't think so.
I haven't.
It's a bit of a throwback.
Yeah, he needs to get. Maybe he's vibing with it.
I was watching Phil congratulate people. I was like, oh, and it's Rickie.
Classic Rickie. Get it in there. I completely agree with the whole putting stroke though. Like back in 4, 5, 6, you know, back when he was Rickie Fowler, his putting stroke was so smooth and nice to watch. It just looked so steady, like a nice pendulum. It was such the prettiest thing to watch on the greens, really. So I would love to see that get back, because easy got a root for it, like you said.
Yeah. So then my stock down is Erik van Rooyen. I'm pretty sure most people probably saw him kind of lose his mind there for a minute and smash the tee marker on 17. To set it up a little bit, he was on Friday, he was +2 on the 14th tee. The cut was at +5.
Yeah,
I believe at the time. He went from the 14th tee, he went bogey, double, bogey to put him to +6. And then he hit it in the drink on 17. I think he ended up making a triple or a quad. I don't know. But essentially he ejected himself after that and lost his mind a little bit, hit the tee marker. It looked like a guy in the background kind of like flinched. Like, I don't know if a piece of the thing went flying off or what happened, or if he just kind of overreacted or what. But either way, he kind of spooked a guy and then turns around and comes back for another shot at it and smashed it the other way and breaks his club. It's just, it's okay to get mad and to get emotional. But that, to me, that totally crossed the line, and it becomes where it can be dangerous for other people around you.
Well, yeah,
and like you're a professional,
close to
like
Matt
you can't
Wallace's
do that.
caddy.
Pardon me?
Yep.
He's close when he came swung back around to hit it again. He was pretty close to Matt Wallace's caddy.
Off.
No, it wasn't even his caddy. It was Matt Wallace's caddy.
Oh, it wasn't his caddy.
Yeah.
It just, to me, it crossed the line. Like,
for sure.
Matt Wallace's caddy has a tough enough job as it is, man. Let's throw that guy in.
He's not thinking he's gonna catch strays from other golfers.
He's trying to at all times.
Keep his head on a swivel.
But as golfers, we all get there. We're like we've all been at the point where we want to break every club in our bag. But specifically professionals, they have to keep it in check better than that.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Did you see Henrik Stenson break his club today or yesterday?
That was a professional club
That's
snap.
a professional, gentlemanly club
Was it
snap.
just over his knee?
Oh, into the ground,
Just
snap,
the-
handed to the caddy.
Yeah, there you go.
he picked it up, finished the job, handed both pieces over.
I didn't see that, but I love it. That's fine.
Yeah. That's a 40-something-year-old club snap.
Yeah. I completely agree. Emotion is fine. That crossed the line, pretty much. Yeah. I completely agree. Okay. My stock up, I'm going Justin Rose. Finished T8 here. So since the end of it's the end of May right now. Since the beginning of March, he's only played in 3 tournaments. So we've barely seen Justin Rose really, but he had a 7th at the Masters where he was in the running for a long time, and he had an 8th at the PGA Championship. His 2 majors, he missed had a missed cut elsewhere. But in 3 tournaments, 2 major top 10s. I think that's very, very strong. The crazy thing is he did it almost completely with his putter. It was on fire again, like it was at the Masters. He gained 2.93 strokes in putting per round, more than a stroke better than anybody else that made the weekend. Like incredible putting. So my stock up is Justin Rose.
Yeah, I just struggling a little bit with Rosie, trying to figure out if he is like. I feel like there's a bit of a generational shift with a lot of the.
Did we lose Craig?
Oh, we might have lost him. Well, I can talk about Rose for a second. I definitely thought that Rose was done kind of earlier this year, and he kind of has turned it around out of nowhere. So, yeah, it's impressive.
Craig, we lost you for a second. I think the local recording still got you, but I'm sure it'll be a perfect segue at the end of the day.
Yeah, so essentially, you guys finished my point that you don't know whether he's part of the past generation or if he's still part of the present generation.
Yeah, I guess so. There you go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, brothers, okay. Same thought length. There you go.
So, I mean, the 2 biggest tournaments so far this year, top 10. So he's trying to show that he's still part of the present.
For sure. Stock down, Cameron Tringali. Oof. Interesting couple days. He was 2 under and tied for 8th after the first round. Looking good, coasting to the weekend, try to get a good top 20, kind of like what Cory Connors did. He had a birdie early in the second round to go to -3. He then went triple bogey on 14, just kind of going ping-ponging back and forth around the green, led to a triple bogey. And then a quintuple bogey on 16, which had 2 in the water. So that's a 10 on a par 5. So only at this point, he's at 5 over. He's still on the cut line. Still has a lot of holes to go. Follows that up with a quadruple bogey on 17 with 1 in the water. And then it is just an old regular bogey on 18. So in the span of 8 holes, he went from 3 under, completely in the conversation, to +10 and having to have a miracle to make the cut. So it was a crazy third 9, I guess, for him of the tournament collapse. He ended up getting 2 birdies coming in, but
I was going to say, I don't know if that might be the most impressive thing about it to me is that he then on his back 9, which was the front 9 of the course, but he shot a 34. So like here's his 4 9 holes in the first 2 days. He went 34, 37, 33, and 48.
Oh my god. 48.
Yeah, I don't. He's a guy that I love to play in DFS, and I had a sprinkle of 10% of him, and I was kind of like, oh, this is a nice little sleeper. It was setting up for a nice 6 of 6 I had with a few guys.
3/4 of the 9s, it looks that way.
3/4 of the 9s look really good. I actually don't even know. I haven't seen clips of what happened, but just a complete meltdown, a blow up. I mean, I don't even know what to call it.
Well, I'm looking at the shot trackers. It looks kind of like a children's coloring book.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It completely does. Okay, guys, I think that closes the book on the 2021 PGA Championship. Any last thoughts you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I think we need last thoughts on Phil. That we gotta end strong. We just had one of the most memorable major champions of our time.
Do we want to ask the question then? What do you think? There's now reignited hope for the career Grand Slam. Where are we at for that? He's got 5 more shots at the U.S. Open.
He has 5. I was just thinking Torrey Pines. I already forgot he had 5 more shots at it.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I don't like him at Torrey. The U.S. Open's a tough ask. I mean, yes, he's got a shot at it. He has reignited it. I think that we're trying to ask a guy to catch lightning in a bottle twice. Yeah. It's a big ask.
It's a big ask. I'd love to see him do it though, and I love that he's got 5 more cracks at it.
I would say, to me, I could much more likely. I think we could see him relevant at Augusta sometime in the next 10 years because that course is so well suited to how he plays.
Augusta, British Open. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention. You mentioned that Henrik Stenson one. I've heard that performance that he put on at that British Open that Henrik Stenson won was like the 5th best, all things put into like relative to how the field played and everything else. It was the 5th best major performance in history. So another one of Phil stymies that, his tally could be so much higher if he had a few breaks go the other way.
Well, it's interesting because I was listening to the Data Golf guys on a podcast somewhere, and they were talking about how like we think that type of thing should happen more, where you like really get like a duel between 2 guys, but like those 2, it was like one of them doing that round was such a crazy outlier, or that tournament was such a crazy outlier. But then for those 2 to be doing that, Stenson and Phil Mickelson at the same time, was just absurd. Like the odds of that happening, and so I don't know if we're gonna see Phil in a major again. So it was special to have, and if we don't, then what a way to cap the career, or
totally.
like cap his
completely
major career.
The one thing in terms of the whole golf history is I think it says something that this happened in this time with the modern nutrition, fitness, physiotherapy, stretching, and not just and equipment, and not just that, but the fact that you have to dedicate yourself. I mean, we can look at his first wins and his body image compared to then and now, or even in the peak of his career then and now. Like he's really, done a lot of work to stay relevant and to catch up with these young guys. But it wouldn't happen in a time where we had the modern science and nutrition and teams of all these people around you to build your body to last that long. So it's both a good timing in terms of the science, but the dedication and hard work it takes from an individual to go through that, like a Phil Mickelson or a Tom Brady, to last this long in their careers.
Yeah.
But I would say, almost conversely, it sort of highlights how much of sport is not just the physical. Like, because I do agree that people have way better ability to prolong their physical, maybe not prime, but close to prime, like their physical, where they can compete. But then, if it is just about the physical aspect of it, Phil's not winning this tournament. Like some young, very much in their physical prime player is going to be doing so. And it just shows that like the savvy that you build up over the years to be able to go out there and know how to pick your moments, know how to limit the bleeding when it's bleeding, and get through 72 holes lower than anyone else.
For sure. Like Peyton Manning dunking his way to a championship, right?
Yeah, you know what? That last Super Bowl, he was not carrying that team, but he carried enough teams that didn't win them, so that's fine.
I thought that was Brock Osweiler's Super Bowl.
Okay, now
we digress.
That's a good major chat. I think we're about 90 minutes into it, but that was a good chat with a historic win. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next up, we got the Charles Schwab Challenge, which will be good. Interesting field. We actually got a lot of good guys. A lot of superstars attending.
Recent major champion, Phil Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson already said that he's going to go, which is kind of interesting.
That's crazy.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Grandstand Golf. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for listening to our content. Good luck next week, and we'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Yeah, I need a little bit of withdrawal time from golf here, but we'll see you this week.
See ya.